Today, I am happy to chat with prolific storyteller Michael Ronn. Michael does double duty writing character driven science fiction and fantasy novels, which he also talks about, and you can find his books on his author website, michaellauron.com. And Michael also helps authors to move forward as indie authors, as self-published authors, and author entrepreneurs at his website and YouTube channel, authorlevelup.com. And so thanks so much, Michael, for being here. This is so exciting to be able to chat with you.
Hi, Lorna. Thanks for that great introduction. It's great to be here.
Justin Sloan actually kind of introduced us, and I didn't even realize that you guys are writing a book together. I mean, how awesome is that? And
Yeah,
so,
mutual friend.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's just so great. So would you just kind of share your start, like so where you got you were inspired to write stories and your interest in specifically, I guess, writing science fiction and fantasy books. And then, later on, your inspiration behind your YouTube channel, Author Level Up.
Sure. Well, I guess I have to preface this with the cliche that I've always been a science fiction and fantasy reader, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Grew up reading the Star Trek books by Dean Wesley Smith, grew up as a Star Trek fan, grew up watching all the science fiction and fantasy movies that came out. So it's in my blood.
Yeah.
Always has been, always will be. And I actually got my start as a writer, funny enough, in music. So I wanted to be a video game composer. And I loved music of all kinds. I loved jazz, played like 10 different instruments. And when I got to high school, I wanted to be the next Masashi Hamauzu, which is the guy that does the Final Fantasy soundtracks. I wanted to be him. And I found out slowly but surely that the music industry just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
It's very competitive. I just didn't have the mindset, and my heart just wasn't in it as much as I thought it was.
Yeah.
And I'd always written stories on the side and really got around to it when I hit the rock bottom with my music. And I realized, hey, I've been missing a lot of really cool stuff. And so I jumped into storytelling, and I've been doing that ever since. And in 2012, I was on a great dinner with my wife, and that night I felt ill. And I had what I thought was food poisoning and ended up in the hospital a month. So I lost a tremendous, insane amount of weight. I wasn't able to eat very much, was laying in a hospital bed, staring at a wall for about a month, and really just decided I have to do something else with my life.
Yeah.
Right? I have to take it to the next level. I have to do something. I can't just let this be the epitome of my life,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah.
And so I made the decision. I chased traditional publishing for a little while. It didn't really work out. I chased agents for a little while, kind of like a dog chasing a hot dog truck. That didn't really work. And I decided I'm going to go indie. And so I published my first book in 2014 and just haven't looked back. And I've published science fiction and fantasy. I've written some poetry. I've written some short stories. Kind of a lot of different things, but I'm primarily a science fiction and fantasy author. And what's important to me as an author is to publish a lot of books, right?
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yep.
I love being an author. There's just nothing else that compares to that joy of seeing a book that you've published being sent out into the world, right?
Yes.
But one of the things that's really important to me in my career, I've been fortunate to have a lot of really good mentors and people who have helped me, not just in writing, but in life. And it's important for me to give back, even though I'm not necessarily at a level of success that you might say I'm, best-selling author. It's just important for me to give back. And so I started Author Level Up as a way to do YouTube videos every week to distill all the information that I learned to help authors get to where I'm at. If maybe they've only got one book, or maybe you've only got two books, or maybe you have no books, right? Just craft business and marketing advice that helps authors take it to the next level up, so to speak.
Yeah, that is so awesome, and what a great thing. I mean, I love your YouTube channel, by the
Thank
way.
you.
I just and you're just so natural on video, and you just you explain things really simply, and the videos are short too, which I appreciate that because as far as time goes, right? And so maybe a lot of other people are like that too, right? Time's kind of our thing, right? If it's
Yeah, it's the essence. I mean, time is the new currency,
yeah,
right? It's the new money. Yeah, that's important to me is to keep the video short. I recognize that everybody's moving at a mile a minute, right? People have tons of things to do, or attention spans are short, and
yeah,
so I said if I'm going to do a YouTube channel, I'm going to do a channel where if I can get the content done in 3 to 5 minutes, that's perfect.
that
Less,
is.
better. And
Yeah.
every once in a while, I have some videos that are a little bit longer that I've done, and those are popular too.
Well, that's so great. Well, do you mind if we just start talking about fiction writing, and then we'll move later into talking about YouTube and kind of what you do there.
Yeah,
But
that sounds great.
yeah, well, would you share with first time authors listings, for writers that are wanting or beginning maybe to start to write science fiction and fantasy, would you share how you got started writing, and do you did you take writing courses? Did you read craft books, listen to audios, videos? Like how did you get started?
Sure. And I guess I should describe my science fiction and fantasy first.
Yes.
I write science fiction and fantasy from the perspective of unusual characters. So, for example, my Android X series is about an android. And it's about an android facing off against a rogue killer who's going wrecking havoc in a city in the year 2300. Androids, I've written a series about teddy bears. I've written a series about food
Yeah.
from science fiction fantasy. I've written a series about dragons. That's my current series right now. And so I like to take unusual characters and give them a voice, get inside their heads.
Yeah.
And my brand is called Fearless Fiction for that reason, is because I like to take those characters that are unusual and that are a little bit on the fringe that people aren't necessarily used to seeing. They're used to seeing maybe as stock characters like dragons, or they're used to seeing androids as stock characters, but never necessarily as a main character. So that's where I like to approach my fiction from. But when I got started, I started off reading every book you could imagine. I Every time I got paid, I would go out and buy tons of books every 2 weeks, just to try to figure out what other authors had done to be
Yeah.
successful. And I took all the courses, um, watched tons of YouTube videos on writing, and I consider myself to be a constant learner.
Yeah.
I've accepted that I just can never know it all, and so
Yeah.
learning everything about this business, how to be an author, the business of being an author, how to be professional.
Yeah.
All of that is something I take very seriously. And
Yeah.
so I'm always educating myself and have always done that since I've published. But that's how I got started. I'm the kind of person where if I want to go learn something, I go out and get a book about it.
Okay,
Typical
that's
author,
great.
right?
Yeah. Well, and that's, I mean, I totally relate to that. I'm just a constant learner too. I can't get enough, especially about, storytelling and writing. And I mean, everybody has a passion that they can't get enough of, I think, right? But
Absolutely.
yeah, so I totally get that. So did you find that, really helpful? So how did you start? Did you start practicing? So you'd just start practicing writing stories, and then sort of as you were reading the craft books, you know?
Yeah, I graduated.
Yeah.
I started off writing short stories,
Yeah.
and there was a day not that long ago, even though I have like 20 books out now, where I said I would never write a novel. Said I would never do it. It scared the heck out of me. I didn't know how authors could sit down and just run that marathon. I had no idea how they could do it. And then my friend said, "Hey, you should write a novel, man. I think you can do it." So I did it. And I thought that was awesome. And then I said, okay, I'm only going to do standalones. I don't know how anyone could ever do a series. and then a friend said, no, dude, you have to write a series. That's what's selling. I think you really could do a good job at it. And so I did it, and here I am. And I think every author can say that we're a constant work in progress,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
that's kind of been my story.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've always been evolving, and
Yeah.
enjoyed that.
And maybe that's sort of interesting side note there. I am also on a Facebook group with Susan K. Quinn, and
Okay.
and something that she talks about regularly is that you are constantly, as an indie author, as a self-published author, that you're constantly experimenting and trying new things, because it's almost like you have to think like everything's like a big science experiment or something, So you're not actually failing, you're just trying. And if it doesn't work, then you're going to try something else. Would you say that that's true for,
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely. I am far more intrepid than some authors in the sense that I am not afraid to write a series that flops.
Yeah.
Because it's like I said, like you said, it's not really a flop. You are learning about yourself. Everything that you write, to me, writing to me and reading to me is as sacred as prayer.
Yeah.
I'm learning about myself as I write a book. And so I can never say that I published a book that was a failure, because that taught me something about who I am.
Yeah.
It taught me some important lesson about showing up every day and sitting down in the chair. Maybe I learned something with a character that I can use in another novel, right? And absolutely, it's one big experiment, and you have to write things that are maybe going to put you out of your comfort zone, because if you don't do that, if you don't stretch, then you'll never grow, and if you don't grow as an indie author, then where are you going to go?
Yeah. No, and that's awesome, and that's a great way to put it. The whole growth thing, right? Sometimes it's a hard thing to embrace.
Oh, and it's definitely uncomfortable. I would be lying to you if I said it wasn't uncomfortable. It can be very uncomfortable, especially when you're writing something that you don't know how people are going to respond to it.
Yeah.
That's always a little nerve-wracking, but it's always worth it in the end.
Yeah. So when you say, sorry, this isn't one of the questions either, but no, I'm just on a little bit of a tangent here, because when you say, okay, so that just opened up a whole can of worms for me, because, right now I like writing, I guess you would say character driven, because I like digging into, character wounds. And I know but like that, talk about learning about yourself as an author, because you have to dig deep, right? And
Absolutely.
that's sometimes not an easy thing, right?
No, it's not.
To write those things about, the flaws, or, something from this character's past, and, or if you're writing about, like, say, they had a sister, or, a child that died, or whatever. I mean, these are deep things, and we have to dig deep emotionally. How do you deal with that? Like, because yours is character driven, do you dig deep into these characters, I don't know, wounds, or?
Yeah, I try to dig as deep as I can. And in fact, my current series, The Last Dragon Lord, it's about a fallen dragon lord who is seeking revenge against the conspiracy that overthrew him. And this character, his name is Old Dark. He's a viperous dragon lord.
Yeah.
I've never written a character like that before, but he's vicious, he's brutal. He's just not a good guy from the very first page you read it. And so I really had to learn how to dig into that. Like, what does it mean to be evil, right?
Yeah.
What does it mean to have a view of the world that 99% of the population doesn't like? I mean, he's a dragon lord. He rules the world with an iron fist. He's not friendly. He basically gets what's coming to him in the first couple of pages of the book. I mean, he watches his parents die in front of him, and so his whole thing is about getting revenge. It's about how his honor was inflicted.
Yeah.
And what's he going to do to restore his power, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of that meant digging deeply into his childhood, what his views on his parents were, how he comes to terms with the fact that history is not kind to him.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of that stuff is what I enjoy, because I think one of the things that Dean Wesley Smith is someone who I consider a mentor.
Yeah.
I've never met him in
Absolutely.
person.
Yeah.
I've only chatted with him a few times. I've taken his courses. But one of the things he talks about is getting into the heads of characters. And one of the ways that you can do that as an author is by using the five senses. So when you're writing a scene, say my dragon is in a bog, how does he see it? Right? What does he smell? How would a dragon smell? Would it be similar to a human's, or would it be similar to a dog? Right? And how would that smell color his thoughts? How does he see things? Right? What does the grass feel like underneath his claws? All of those things can help you really get the reader into the character's head so that they can see what he's seeing. But then that's not enough. You have to take that a little bit further. And what Dean talks about is filtering the history and opinions of that character. So what is he seeing, right? We talked about that, but what is the opinion? Where is he at? How does he feel about that? Right? Or if he encounters a character, how does he feel about that character? And how does that character feel about him? And so you bounce all those things back and forth, and then you find that it's almost like a freestyle experiment, right? There's just the tons of things that you can do to get inside the character's head, through the sensory details, through his history, a little bit of backstory. You don't want to overdump it, right? You don't want to info dump things.
Yeah.
But then through what his opinion is about his situation and what he's currently going through. And I find that allows me to really get inside the head of my characters and even my minor characters and help them be memorable too.
Wow, that is super helpful.
I know that was a long answer to your question.
No, but I appreciate that because that's something actually that I'm working on is to make. I long to write characters that are memorable. Mm-hmm. That because there are some books where I really remember the characters, and that's the kind I love to read. So sometimes as writers we like to write books that we like to read.
Yeah. Well, readers don't read for plot; they read for character, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it just goes back to what Dean keeps talking about in his courses. I would definitely recommend for anyone who's listening who has not been exposed to or who has not taken his courses, mm-hmm. I would definitely recommend the depth course, and I would recommend the character development course. Both of those really help me get a grasp on being able to create a memorable character.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great starting point for people who are writing and who want to do that.
Yeah. That is excellent. I've only taken one of his classes, so I need to dig more into into character. Yeah, for helpful.
Yeah, definitely. It's good stuff.
So you are very prolific. I mean, you have 20 books written, and you just started. It wasn't that long ago, right?
Yeah, I started in 2014. I actually don't even know how many books I've published. I just have lost count, and it's so funny to look at other indie authors who've written double what I have, but it's just. Yeah, I've written, I think it's over 20 books at this point.
Yeah. Wow. So what is your secret? How do you get so many books written so quickly? What's your sort of production thing? Do you, do you set off blocks of time? Do you outline first? Do you, I don't know. Do you just cruise through your first draft? How do you do that?
The first thing I do is I get up at 4:30 every morning. Second thing I do is I get my bag of pixie dust and I sprinkle it over my computer. No, it's funny because I probably would say I have less time to write than most people. When I first started writing, I did all of that in my first year. I wrote my first book while I was planning a wedding. I was looking for my first job out of college, all these things, right? And I just had no time at all to really sit down like I used to be able to in high school. I maybe got an hour, 2 hours worth of writing time in, but I was doing it at night, and I was doing it very early in the morning. So I wake up at 4:30 every morning, and the first thing I do is I sit down and I write. Yeah. Or I do something that moves my career forward in some way, whether that means focusing on building my list or working on my website, whatever that entails. And I have pockets of time. So I have a young daughter. Okay. She's two years old. And so writing with a newborn is very, very challenging. Extremely challenging, especially, when you don't know what your sleep schedule is going to be. And so I just found pockets of time to write, and I write on my phone. I write when I have 5 minutes at my desk, when I'm waiting on my daughter to come back from a walk, or just whenever I find the time. I've always been conscious and cognizant of getting in 100 or 200 words. And that's added up for me. Yeah. It really has. That's my secret, is that I just don't stop.
Yeah.
I'm always thinking about it. I'm always thinking about the horizon and the next books that I'm going to write, and I know what I'm going to write when I sit down. And actually, I don't outline anymore. Yeah. I used to, but I don't. I trust my instinct, and I write my books in one draft. Trust that my gut and my storytelling is there. Yeah. Get it off to my editor and move on.
Oh, that's really good. I was just thinking, I wonder if that's not, one of the secrets is to sort of constantly be thinking of the next, I don't know if you'd call it like the next scene, or like, or even how is this series going to play out? And I mean, if you're writing a series, or, how is this going to lead to the end? And thinking about the characters. I wonder if that's not one of the secrets to, because sometimes I've sat down and, thinking, how do I write this next scene? Because it hasn't been going, yeah, round and round in my head.
Hmm. I think one of the things that's always helped me, I guess I should go back a little bit. I can't always say that when I sit down, I know what I'm going to write. um, there's a lot of times when I sit down, I have no clue how I'm going to get out of this next scene, or,
Yeah,
and it's like, I don't want to write this. I
yeah,
wish I could be past this chapter. And I think one of the things I just have to do is sometimes I have no problem walking away from a project. If I'm not feeling it, if something doesn't feel right,
yeah,
I'll take a couple of days and not write. And I think a lot of people would say, "Oh, well, would you have to write every day?" Well, you don't really. There's been times when I've been stuck in a novel and I said, "Okay, I'm just gonna drift." And I did a video on this. I'm just gonna drift, and I'm gonna let the idea come to me. And when it's time for me to write this, I'm gonna write it. And so I ended up going to it was a festival here in the city where I live. And I remember seeing something at that festival that triggered an idea to finish this scene. And so
okay,
if I hadn't taken that 2 or 3 day break, right,
yeah,
the scene might have turned out entirely different. So I think sometimes you just have to trust your instinct, and
yeah,
just sometimes it's okay to walk away
yeah,
within
that,
reason.
yeah,
Now, if you walk away for 2 years, that's a different story. But sometimes if it's walking away for a few hours or for a few days,
yeah,
you don't have to write every day to have a prolific career.
yeah, yeah. And I think it's so true to, find the inspiration as you just let yourself, be immersed in stuff, right? Because I sometimes find, inspiration in the oddest places. Like I'll go to a craft store. I love craft stuff. And it's like it fills my creative well. It'll give me ideas, which maybe sounds a little odd, but I don't know, it does that for me. So I guess everybody's different, right? And you just,
Yeah. You have to know too what fills your creative well. So going to the craft store,
yeah,
right? That's something you can count on. Like
yeah,
that when you go to the craft store, you're going to come out with at least one idea. Just
yeah,
like for me, I know that when I go on a walk, and I go on several walks a day, I know when I go on a walk and listen to music, I know that I'm going to get some sort of idea or have some sort of revelation about my business, or what I'm going to do with my writing, and how I'm going to move it forward when I get back to my desk.
yeah,
So you can time yourself, you can train yourself to fill that creative well on cue,
yeah,
and regularly, so that you don't run low as
yeah,
often.
yeah. That's really good. Wow, Michael, you just have so many great ideas. It's so good to talk to you. I love this. Okay, so you kind of mentioned this, that the tagline for your sort of your fiction is fearless fiction, and so um, you know, would you talk a little more about that? And um, do you a question kind of that I have, that I know first time authors sometimes, at least the ones I've talked to, sometimes struggle with. But do you ever get scared to write the books that you're writing, or do you worry at all about reader reactions to the books you've written?
Yes and no. I get
Okay.
scared all the time. Every time I start a new series, I wonder, man, is this going to be the one that is like, Fonzie jumping over the shark in Happy Days? Is that going to be it for my career? And I do think about that. But when I was on the hospital bed back in
Yes.
2012, I promised myself that if I'm going to be happy
Yeah.
with the career that I've chosen, I have to be the one in charge. I have to be the one that shows up every day to the desk.
Yeah.
I have to be the one that edits. I have to be the one that shells out the money for the cover design and all these things. And if I'm not happy with it, there's no point,
Yeah.
right? And so for me, I do care about my readers. I love my readers. I have the best readers. I love the readers that leave reviews, and the ones that contact me all the time and say, "I loved your story." That there's nothing in the world that makes me happier than to hear from a reader that has enjoyed one of my books.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I'm not writing the books that speak to me, nothing matters.
Yeah.
And I think there are some authors out there that would quibble with that a little bit. They might say, well, yes, but you have to focus on the market. You have to be a business person. You have to do this or that. But at the end of the day, you have to make the decisions, right? And so I try not to worry so much about what readers are going to think about my new series, because I know that I have put a lot of time into these first few years of my writing career in laying a foundation and laying a strategy of my vision,
Yeah.
right? Of my vision of science fiction and fantasy. And it's a quirky vision. It's a weird vision at times. But I've developed a tribe of people who get that vision. And I think that's what you have to focus on, right? You have to focus on that, laying that foundation, executing on that strategy. And when you do that, and when you focus on writing the best books you can as fast as you can, you'll find that people follow you.
Yeah.
And so you can't be so scared about starting a new series or branching into a new genre.
Yeah.
You just have to do it. You just have to trust your gut, trust your instinct, and have fun.
Yeah.
And that's the answer to that question. Is that yes, I get scared all the time. I was scared to death when I was writing this Last Dragon Lord series, because I didn't think people would get it. It's a bloodthirsty dragon. It's totally different than anything else I've ever done. He's an anti-hero. He's in many ways larger than life and the most complex character that I've ever done.
Yeah.
And that really scared me a little bit, because I thought, well, maybe people aren't going to resonate with it. And it couldn't have been further from the success, from the results of the book. So you just have to throw yourself out there.
Yeah. That's very encouraging, because Michael, so right now it's sort of a new subgenre. Like the last couple books I've written is historical romance, but all my books have a ton of suspense. Okay. I just can't help myself. I don't know why.
Suspense and romance, they go together like peanut butter and jelly, right?
But I'm branching off into Western historical romance, which with also a ton of suspense. And for some reason, this one feels scarier. I mean, I don't know. I sometimes wonder. So here's a question. I sometimes wonder if something that feels a little closer to home, because I kind of grew up, farm cowboyish. I wonder sometimes if something that's closer to home and you can relate to more, if that scares you more as an author. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. It depends. I've written some things that have been closer to home.
Yeah.
I guess in terms of things that I've written in like some of my science fiction. And that actually affected me less than some of the things that I wrote that I had no idea. I mean, it just depends. I think everyone's different. I think it depends on the subject matter. But I think scary is good.
Yeah.
I think if you're not scared, that's not always good. I think I equate it to like working out, right? Okay. You work out, your muscles hurt, but the next day they're bigger, and I think fear is kind of the same thing when it comes to writing.
Yeah.
The bigger the fear is, the bigger the reward is, and the more you grow.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. That's really good. So, sort of talking about, sort of on the theme of writing, recently you co-authored a fantasy novel, and I think it's a series now with Justin Sloan, right?
Yes, my friend Justin Sloan. It is the series is called Modern Necromancy.
Okay.
And launches October 31st, Halloween, which is perfect.
Awesome.
For the series. And it's about an adventurer named Ronn, and his fiance has just passed away just before the book starts, and he's distraught and really would do anything to bring her back. And he comes into contact with a mysterious doctor who promises that he can bring Rohan's fiance back from the dead if he'll join him on this strange expedition to Russia. And what ends up happening is a very fast-paced supernatural thriller that involves the dead, it involves necromancers, and basically it involves Rohan having to stop this madman doctor from unleashing the spirits of the afterlife into the real world. And so it's just been a lot of fun. It's one of the coolest things I've ever written.
Oh, wow. That sounds fascinating. I'm going to have to read that.
Yeah, it's fun. We've got book 1 ready to launch in October 31st. We've got book 2 coming in November, and then we're in the process of writing book 3 right now.
Okay. Wow. That sounds exciting, and the topic is very intriguing, right? Necromancy. Wow.
Yeah, it's funny, and I guess I have to talk about how Justin and I met because it's a funny story. So,
Yes.
in 2014, I published a book called Festival of Shadows, and it's about a teddy bear who has to rescue his owner from the boogeyman. And a friend of mine, a mutual friend of mine, said, "Hey, this book is interesting, but you should check out this other book that this other guy wrote." And so I pull up a book, and it's another book because my book has like this kick-ass teddy bear on it
Yeah.
with a sword. And I pull up this other book, and it's got this teddy bear on it who's got like these fists, and his fists are like glowing. And I'm like, whoa, this is kind of weird. It's like a very similar story. And so I read it and was reading it, and it turns out we published our books maybe within a couple months of each other, but there's no way we could have known. And so I reached out to him, and we started chatting, and
Yeah.
we both thought it was the funniest thing that out of all the things you could write in the fantasy genre,
Yeah.
we both write books about teddy bears. And I thought that was just awesome. And so we started talking, and so Justin brought up this idea, well, why don't we co-write a novel? That might be kind of interesting. We've got some mutual friends that he's co-written books with, and it was kind of new to me. I was a little nervous about it at first, but we wanted to co-write a book in the teddy bear universe, but that didn't work out. And so we started talking, and this necromancer idea is what came up. And it fit in really perfectly with my brand, teddy bears, androids, dragons. Right. It just seemed like a good fit. And it was an idea that he'd had stewing for a long time. And the rest is history. And we ended up co-writing this book. It was fun.
Oh, that is fun. So that comes out end of October, the first book. And
Yep.
and what's that called again?
It's called Death Marked. The very first book is called Death Marked. Book
okay.
2 is Death Bound. And then book 3 is Death Crowned.
Oh, great titles. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It took us forever to come up with them.
They're really great. So, would you just talk just a little bit about like steps to co-authoring with a book with another writer? I mean, that's something that I've never done either. So,
Yeah, and it's amazing because it was my first time. It's amazing how eerily similar it is to writing a book on your own. It just involves longer steps in the process. So we started off with a lot of phone calls. He'd be on his way home from work. I'd be, feed my daughter, and we'd just be chatting about stuff, and we'd bounce ideas off each other. What if we did this, or what if we did that? And I think we maybe did that for a couple of weeks, back and forth via email, via phone. And I think we really dialed down on the idea in a couple of weeks. And then we really wanted to focus on what we wanted the book to be, but also what we didn't want it to be. Okay. And I think the list of what we didn't want it to be was longer than the list of what we wanted it to be. Just because he has his brand, I have my brand, and we're bringing them together and paying attention to our readers and knowing what they're both going to like and what dovetails, where their interests dovetail was really important to us. So we spent a lot of time talking about that, a lot of time talking about the market, focusing on where does this book fit in the market, right? Because we're writing this book that we're both really passionate about, but where are the readers? Where are we going to find them? And so we wrote the book. We wrote the first couple of chapters. They were pretty rough. We went back and forth on it to kind of clarify what our writing voice was going to be. And then we wrote the first draft. He did a pass. I did a pass. We sent it to the editor. Then he did a pass. I did a pass. We sent it to our beta readers. And now we're going to publish it. So it's pretty similar to the process. It just a little bit longer formation stays.
Yeah. Do you guys each write different scenes? Like, do you go back and forth then? So you'll write a chapter, he writes a chapter, or how does that?
We would each take a few chapters.
Okay.
I have a very linear mindset. It's hard for me to write out a sequence, whereas I think it comes to him a little bit more naturally.
Oh, okay.
So I think I started the first few chapters, and then he picked up in the middle, and then we kind of met a little bit. And then we kind of, once the first draft was done, we divided up. So he'd take the first half, I'd take the second half, and then we'd switch. And so then we'd be constantly emailing each other or IMing each other on any questions we had back and forth. And it ended up working pretty well.
Yeah. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. I mean, I thought eventually it would be fun to co-author. So it's great to hear your thoughts on it because.
Yeah. And the great thing about co-authoring too is not just so much like you're collaborating on a book, but it's also you're learning about yourself. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for Justin because he is. I thought I was prolific and fast. He's like double what I can do. And it's really fascinating to watch him work because he has a really good mind for marketing. I enjoy marketing. He enjoys it a lot more than I do.
Okay. Yeah.
And he's really good at it, and it's just really cool to see him work. And I can bring a lot of that to my own stuff. And so, I consider myself to be a very technical person. I care a lot about how things are done, making sure that they're done correctly, paperback formatting, making sure that that looks good, making sure that the cover and certain elements on the cover really speak to who the target audience is. And I think our skills really dovetail really well together. And that's one of the things I would recommend to someone in co-authoring a book. It's not so much that you're creating a book. I mean, that's the fun part, right? But it's the skills that you pick up while you're doing it. And I think that I'm a much better author having done this and having taken this move in my career.
Yeah. I can't wait till the book comes out. I'm looking forward to reading it now.
Yeah, if anybody wants advanced reader copies, you just shoot us an email. We'll be happy to send it.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'll put the links in the show notes, and then people
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, that'd be great. So, if you don't mind, we just switch a little bit and just talk a little bit about YouTube, because you just really have a lot of skill there. You just have so many great tips, and just even how you do it on your YouTube channel for Author Level Up. And so would you just talk a little bit about why YouTube would be important for authors to connect with readers?
Sure. Well, YouTube is, to my estimation, the second largest website in the world. It is also a search engine, and it is the only second largest website in the world that is a search engine that is also a social media site. Yeah. So it is a unique beast to say, for lack of a better word. I would be hard pressed to find a single person that's probably listening to this podcast that has not watched YouTube within the last week. Right? Yeah. It's like Facebook. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's on people's devices. It's on their computers. It's even on their televisions now. YouTube has just exploded, and it's always been a big force. But how authors can use YouTube is that it has a unique element that podcasting does not, in that you can see someone. Mm-hmm. So when people are watching my videos and I'm giving them advice, or I am recommending that they read one of my books or my fiction books, or I'm thanking them for reading, right? Not only do they hear me, they see me. They can make opinions about me. They could say, oh, this guy, he seems like a pretty cool guy. Or this guy seems like a jerk. I don't want to watch him, right? Like they can make decisions right then and there, and they can get a sense of who you are. Yeah. And I think that comes across much better on video than it does in a call to action page in the back of your book. So I think that you can use video as a way to augment what you're already doing. If you're already writing good books, then put your face out there. Let people see you. Let them get a sense of who you are. That's how you build connections. Because let's face it, people, they buy from people who they know and trust, right? Yeah. So it's a lot easier to buy from me if you've seen my videos, you know who I am, you like my personality, I hope, right? Yeah. It's easier for that person to take that next step. So that's the foundation, the cornerstone that I tell people who are considering doing video or who are wondering how it could be good for them. Start there. Yeah. Once you start there, then that's when you can start figuring out, what kind of content works best for you, what kind of format works best for you, and so on.
Well, and that's the beautiful thing, is that we're not all made the same, and so then each person's sort of YouTube channel would look just a little bit different, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was scared. I'm notorious before I started Author Level Up. I like to take big leaps in my career. I say yes to things and I do them and just see what happens. That's great. I'm a textbook INTJ. I'm a textbook introvert. Social interactions make me extremely nervous. But I used to hide in the bathrooms at social events because I was just so afraid of the interaction.
Just chatting though.
Yeah, but you would never know that by looking at my YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I think I was always scared of getting my face out there just because I thought I would break people's cameras and things like that. But but you really have to do it. you don't get yourself out there, if you don't let people see you, how are they going to know who you are? How are they going to know what you stand for? Right. And
Yeah.
not everyone is going to read that call to action in your book. Not everyone is even going to read your book. Your video might be what convinces them to take the leap. I've had people that reached out to me and said, dude, I love your videos. They're fantastic. I'm going to go buy some of your books. And
That's great.
that's fun.
Yeah. That is. Well, and that is like what you were saying. That is such a huge thing, right? The people getting to know you and your personality and
Right. And
that.
I would also say for fiction authors, because I think fiction authors have the harder time of, well, what do I do
Yeah.
with it, right? Because it's easy for me to say, well, I do author level up. I do advice for authors every week.
Yeah.
And that's very easy position to take. It's certainly not original, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's hard for fiction authors to think, well, how do I do this, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think the best way to do it is to build a connection with your audience. So link from your call to action page, link to a landing page on your site where you're sitting in your room and you say, hey, thanks for reading my book. It's really awesome to have you here. Here's who I am. Here's what I write. Oh, and by the way, go sign up for my list.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, that's good.
That's a great way to use video as a fiction author.
Yeah.
You can take it further. You can do the book trailer things. I'm not a huge fan of book trailers. It can be done.
Yeah.
Or you could do a weekly video that's what you're reading, whatever it is. Just know who your audience is. Know those people who are going to want to watch your videos and have fun.
YouTube is sort of I'm still trying to get used to actually how it works and stuff. So I don't know a whole lot about it, but for listeners that are really kind of wanting to start in using YouTube, are there some tips on how they can use a YouTube channel where they can make the most of it? Like, is there some kind of add-ons that you can figure out, say for instance, who your listeners are, or like how to use it better in social media?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm just so used to Facebook and Twitter and just the regular ones, but YouTube also is a social media thing, and so I don't know.
Yeah, well, I would say YouTube is particularly unique in that it gives you the best demographics of any platform that I've certainly ever used. You don't know who the people are buying your book on Amazon.
Yeah.
You're lucky if they leave you a review, and you're lucky if that reviewer has a profile on Amazon where you can kind of get some information about them. And then you're a little luckier if they have a website that you can go to, or maybe you can look at, I just feel like it's like an expedition and futility sometimes when it comes to getting data on your readers from the major reading platforms, right?
Yeah.
YouTube, I can know this very week, right? I can know who watched my videos, what country they're from, what their age range is, whether they're male or female, how they found my videos, what keywords they used. If you have AdSense, you can monetize that. I mean, it just gives you a tremendous amount of data on your audience that you just don't get. I know more about my YouTube subscribers than I know about my readers, and I have a lot of readers on my list, and I just think it's crazy to say that, right? But yeah, YouTube will really tell you who your audience is, and that's beneficial because it can help you craft better content, right? Because if you know that people who are coming to your site or people who are coming to your channel are getting there via keyword searches that are about smash words, for example, right? Well, then you know that you can maybe make more videos on smash words because that might be a bigger topic, right? Or if you have a passion of making videos about, I don't know, some aspect of taxes for writers, right? And there's no one getting to your video by those keywords. Well, maybe that's not a good topic to use.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's
personal
fair.
experience there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it is about experimenting, right? Just trying stuff. But that's great that you can know more about your listeners, right?
Yeah. And that's a good reason to use YouTube for authors is because you can get more the more information you have about the people who can become potential fans.
Yeah.
I think is always a good thing.
Yeah. Are there what technology would you use or recommend for people that are just kind of getting started, right? thinking that they would like to do something on YouTube, but maybe they don't want to spend a lot of money, but they
Sure.
would like to, just some tips with that.
And I realize I totally evaded the last part of your question there with the add-ons. I think the best tool you can use to get started with YouTube
Yeah.
is your smartphone.
Oh, okay.
It's the best tool. I record all my videos on my smartphone.
Okay.
Every last video. I have a few apps that I use I use ScreenFlow, for example, to edit my
Okay.
videos. But you can just as easily, if you have a Mac, you can use iMovie. If you have Windows, you could just as easily use Windows Movie Maker if that suited you. You don't have to spend a whole lot of money. And in fact, I got started with my setup for probably less than $200. I use my smartphone to shoot the videos. I use ScreenFlow to edit the videos. I have a camera stand that I use, like a tripod, that's adapted for smartphones so that, everything's level. I have a lavalier microphone that you'll see in the videos that I attach to my shirt collar that picks up better audio, because audio is key. You want to make sure you have good audio.
Yeah.
And you can pick up a lavalier microphone for as little as 20 or 30 bucks. It just clips onto your shirt. You plug it into your smartphone, and you've got pro audio and much better audio than you'd have if you just use your smartphone. So that's all you need to get started. It's really simple, and you could do that and see what that does for you. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You didn't spend very much. And if it does, then as you start to monetize your channel, as more people start to get into your tribe and your gravitational field, you can spend more money and you can upgrade your equipment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the basics, I would tell you. You don't need to spend a lot of money or a lot of time to get started.
Yeah.
It's as easy as doing it today.
Yeah. Would you just talk about, we mentioned that before, but just about titles and maybe a little information about new books, projects that you have on the go?
Sure. Well, the first thing I would recommend that people check out is a series that I'm doing with Justin, and that is Modern Necromancy. It's currently on Amazon. The first book is called Death Marked. It's got a really cool guy with a bunch of magic in his hand and mountains in the background. You can't miss it.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I would recommend that you check out. The book is launching October 31st, but you can pre-order on Amazon. It is also available on InstaFreebie if anyone wants to go there. And we have some bonuses that we'll give you if you grab it through there as well. That's the first thing I'd recommend that you check out. And that book is called Death Marked. If you would like to check out any of my books, you certainly are welcome to go to www.michaellorn.com. And you can go to the book section. It has information on all my books and where to find them. And if you'd like to check out my YouTube channel, you can visit that at www.authorlevelup.com. That'll have a link to the YouTube channel. You can watch all my videos right there on the website, or you can find me on YouTube by searching for Author Level Up.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much, Michael. This has been such a good chat, and I've learned so much. So I just appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to be here, and thanks for inviting me here, Lorna. It's been great.
Awesome.